Let's bring in the great Tom Fitton. He's president of Judicial Watch and the author of A Republic Under Assault. Tom, good afternoon to you, sir.
Hello, Vince. Good to be with you. Thank you.
At this point, if your eyes aren't open to what's happening here, there's no chance, is there?
Yeah, not only has there not been any evidence of criminal misconduct by President Trump, but it looks like he's the crime victim. And when you see what Cohen has admitted to, both in terms of lies and ethical and legal misconduct, some of which targeted Trump, maybe the wrong person's in the dock.
It definitely seems that way. In fact, I want to play, just to give people an example of something Michael Cohen has said on the stand. You've got he said a couple times this week already that he's never met with Alvin Bragg, the Manhattan DA. But here's Michael Cohen in a podcast. This was played today for the jury. Take a listen to this.
So I want to thank the Manhattan District Attorney's Office and their field leader, Alvin Bragg, with whom I spent countless hours laying out how Trump directed those hush money payments and countless other financial crimes. He is about to get a taste of what I went through, and I promise you, it's not fun. Picturing Donald Trump being led through the booking process, getting fingerprinted, having his mugshot taken, fills me with delight.
All right, so there's Michael Cohen saying, I've met with Alvin Bragg endlessly, he said in his podcast, yet on the stand, he's been telling jurors this week, never met the guy.
Never met the guy. He admits to taping Trump, his own client taping him, so he could convince this National Enquirer publisher that Trump would pay him back. So it wasn't like he was taping him for any ethical or legal reason. It was part of his operation to take care of the Stormy Daniels issue so he could become, based on his own testimony, it looks like chief of staff or attorney general. Mm-hmm. And that would have been interesting, but that didn't happen, obviously. No. And frankly, the outrage here, obviously, is that Bragg, as you pointed out, as we had opened up, Bragg is using this person as a witness. And it further highlights how outrageous it is that Trump has been put through this. They had no evidence. They had evidence to the contrary, that he was a crime victim in this whole process. And it's turned into what I call a 5-week hostage situation, where President Trump is a political hostage, and all of America is being held hostage to Alvin Bragg and another Democrat activist, Judge Merchan.
And the whole point of all of this, as you have been laying out so frequently, is it's an election rigging scheme. So I want to use that to segue to another issue that you're focused on this week. Judicial Watch has obtained documents related to illegal aliens voting in our elections, in particular in Washington, D.C. What can you tell us about those?
Well, they passed a law here in D.C. to allow aliens to vote, including illegal aliens. The only rule is essentially that can be seemingly enforced is that you've been a resident here for 30 days, and you don't plan to vote in an election back in your home country.
Right.
At least in the foreseeable future. So the way I read it is the Russian ambassador can start voting here in D.C. for mayor, or maybe even run for mayor. Who knows? Mm-hmm. And so they're not satisfied with that. Congress tried to pull it back. The House voted to take it out, under its prerogatives, and the Senate just flailed and didn't do anything. So right now, illegal aliens and foreign nationals can vote in our nation's capital for local officials. And, of course, D.C. didn't leave it at that. They started doing training for illegal aliens and others, and we took note of that and asked for some of the documents. And it just confirms everything we're concerned about, that you have our nation's capital helping illegal aliens vote in our local elections. And it highlights what the left's goal are in a dramatic way. And
Sure.
That's to ensure that aliens vote in all elections. I mean, they don't see, they think it's an outrage to not able to vote in federal elections.
And as you point out, Congress had a chance to stop this in the district, and they're not doing it. In other words, Democrats, particularly in Congress, are endorsing this very behavior.
That's true. And, if Republicans thought it was important enough, they could have pushed it through the omnibus or the must-pass legislation that kept the government functioning and open. So I get a little frustrated when they make noise after the fact that they're doing something on an important issue that evidently wasn't important enough to, be part of the package that kept the government open. But that's another battle.
Mm-hmm.
But right now, in our nation's capital, the Chinese ambassador, the Russian ambassador, any foreign national, any illegal alien, for all intents and purposes, can vote for mayor or the D.C. council or ANC commissioner or any other elected office here in D.C.
And that goes right to the point that Democrats have tried to make for years. They tried to claim, they're like, oh, we don't want the foreign adversaries meddling in our elections. And you're pointing out, well, actually, no, the Chinese ambassador can explicitly do that in the District of Columbia.
Yeah, and, on top of that, if you're a district resident who's a citizen, at least I'm personally offended that my vote's being canceled out by someone who's not supposed to be here in the country.
Yeah. Yeah,
and the legal alien is not supposed to be here in the country. They're supposed to be somewhere else at their home, in wherever they're from. Instead, they're here canceling out my vote and the votes of every other citizen here in the District of Columbia. And Congress has ultimate purview constitutionally over everything that happens in D.C., and they're letting it happen.
Let's go to another scandal with our government, which is they've been using taxpayer dollars to fund an organization called the EcoHealth Alliance for some time. That organization, very close to Dr. Anthony Fauci, directed an immense amount of money to the Wuhan Institute of Virology, believed to be the place by many experts now, that birthed COVID-19, and that it came from there. We have a report this week that the feds are finally nixing the funding, at least for the EcoHealth Alliance specifically. What's your reaction to this, that they're doing it at all, getting rid of this funding? And does that mean this saga is over?
Well, it doesn't. To me, it's the beginning of an investigation that ought to be criminal. But the HHS vindicated those of us who have been hiding this. I mean, a lot of the documents they're referencing only came out thanks to Judicial Watch FOIA lawsuits initially, some Congress released. They knew back in 2016, for instance, in documents we uncovered, that they were using taxpayer dollars to create mutant coronaviruses. That's their word, not mine. I never thought to call gain-of-function research creating mutant viruses, but they understood it to be that. And if we had called it mutant viruses, they would have double censored us, right? And HHS looked at the record, and frankly, it was their record, it was their documents, and they found that they were engaged in gain-of-function research. And when you look at the underlying documents, they don't say gain-of-function directly, but they say, essentially they use a technical word, logarithmic, increase in function or something like that to kind of disguise the admission. And it raises further questions about Fauci's testimony. There needs to be a criminal investigation into the fraud around gain-of-function research. Fraud which has all but been confirmed by the Biden administration's HHS. Right. I mean, the fact that they have seen enough danger here to shut it down, I'm glad they did it. But this has got to be the beginning of a reckoning, because it's still going on here in the United States. It's going on elsewhere. And because this isn't the only funding mechanism for gain of function.
Well, we need testimony from HHS on this. Why is it? So they did two things with the EcoHealth Alliance this week. Not only did they suspend their current grants, they're seeking to ban EcoHealth Alliance from receiving any more future grants from the federal government. So how does a Biden HHS arrive at that conclusion? What have they learned that said these people should never receive money again?
Well, I mean, based on the documents I've reviewed, and I presume they reviewed the same, they promised it wasn't gain of function. And they were being pushed back that it was, and it was this back and forth. And so they were constantly lying, it looks like to me, or presenting information in a misleading way,
right,
to obtain this funding. And, the FBI, I don't know if I talked to you about this yet, Vince, but, I mean, we just got some documents the other day showing the FBI was going down this trail as well back in 2020. So as they're censoring us, the FBI is actually investigating the very issue in a substantive way. And they found, and they were kind of talking about internally, about how what was going on in Wuhan with this research was obviously gain of function. And not only that, they concluded and shared widely, certainly within the Newark office of the FBI that was charged with this, investigating it, that that gain-of-function research could result in viruses that have no fingerprints, meaning you won't know that it had been messed with by human hands.
Now, this all implicates Anthony Fauci, too, as you brought up, which is to say that it sure seems like he's perjured himself on multiple occasions before Congress about what he was aware of and what specifically the EcoHealth Alliance was up to in the Wuhan Institute of Virology. Anthony Fauci is going to testify before the Coronavirus Committee led by Congressman Brad Wenstrup on June 3rd. That's not too far away. I imagine this is going to be central to their conversation.
Well, if he doesn't take the fifth, it tells you how things are going to go, meaning he's not fearful of prosecution. But if I were him, I wouldn't testify. I'd take the fifth.
Because that's how much he's implicated in this.
I mean, the fact that there isn't a criminal investigation of his testimony, and now did he legally commit perjury? I don't know. I mean, it looks to me like it is, but that's why you have an investigation,
right?
And the fact that it hasn't taken place yet, maybe it will be spurred as a result of this decision, because it raises questions not only about those who were funded, EcoHealth Alliance and the Wuhan Institute, but those who were doing the funding.
All right. Tom Fitton, president at Judicial Watch, constantly digging up questions to all these deeply important answers to all these deeply important questions. Tom, good to have you with us today, sir.